This is Page Up with Dr. Angela Lauria, helping you write a nonfiction book that gets clients, drives revenue, and builds credibility. Learn more at pageuppodcast.com. In this class, we are going to get really specific about your book topic in a way that can get your book into readers' hands, into their hearts, and change their lives. Remember, no matter what we do in today's class, it's not going to change the purpose of your book or the purpose of your book for the reader or the purpose of the book for you and your business. We're going to do it in a way that's different than you've probably done it before, that may bring up some stuff and may make you a little uncomfortable, but this is the most important step, the most critical step, and it is the thing that will determine success or failure. When people think about writing a book, they think most of their time in this program or working with us will be spent writing. For a lot of our authors, I'd say at least 50%, most of their time is spent in this one class. It's going to be the longest class. It's going to be the hardest class. And it's going to be the most paradigm-busting class of this whole program. So, for the few of you who are awesome at marketing, awesome at selling, have more leads in business you don't know what to do with, you may fly through this class. But if you are somebody who says, I know I could be making a bigger difference, the reason you are not is all in here. You're going to need to listen to this more than once in most cases, unless, like I said, you're already great at sales and marketing. If you're great at sales and marketing, watch the class once, do the homework, and you'll fly through this. It does happen. But if you've struggled at all with wondering why people don't pay more attention to you, why you don't get more speaking opportunities, why you seem to get clients randomly and you can't repeat it, why you don't have a steady flow of $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month in revenue, this is the reason. And so I need you to pay lots and lots of attention. By the end of this class, you will be ready to submit your book topic to your developmental editor. The better you understand this class, the better you will do your homework, and then your time with your developmental editor will go very quickly and you'll be able to go more deeply. Most people, their first submission to their developmental editor gets kicked back. If that happens to you, I want you to decide right now how you're going to feel about that. I'm going to give you two options. Your developmental editor could kick it back and say, this is not approved. And you could feel like, I shouldn't be here. I'm stupid. I knew this was never going to work. This is a disaster. I've wasted my money. Why did I think I could do this? Who am I to write this book? You could choose all those thoughts, or let me propose this one. This is exactly why I made this investment. I'm so glad she kicked it back because I'm not going to waste 2 years. I am figuring this out and this is what it looks like. And I'm prepared and willing to do hard things. The way I say this often is I'm willing to suck. I'm willing to get this kicked back because this is the missing piece that I have been waiting for. I'm telling you, this class is probably worth 90% of your tuition into this program. So if it gets kicked back, don't feel bad about that. Feel good about that. You are mastering a new skill. Why should you already be good at it? If you are already good at it, it probably means you shouldn't be here. So set your mind now that no matter what happens between now and getting through your book topic approval from your developmental editor, you are excited about the fact you're discovering a way to get your book into people's hands. Not going to change what the outcome you want for yourself, your business, your life, your reader. It's not going to change that, but it's going to shift the paradigm. Remember, when Sharon wrote this book, Love, Lies, Lessons, Life, Love, Life, a journey through authentic, journey through truth. It felt amazing to her. I can't even say, oh, what's that for? Some life coach. I'll just put that right back. I can't even tell you what this title is. Like, I can't even read it. I don't know what it's trying to say. But it felt awesome when she wrote it. Do you want us to approve this as a topic? Do you want to feel awesome when you write it, but nobody buys it? No. And when she wrote this one, Why Can't I Get Over Him? Exposing the lies that keep us stuck in pain after a broken heart. It wouldn't have felt that amazing if she didn't know it was the secret to her getting the outcome she wanted for the book. So I'm going to stretch you. I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. It's going to be a long, hard class. You're going to feel like I'm asking you to do things that are out of integrity. I promise you, I'm not, and it wouldn't work if I did anyway. You're going to feel like I'm asking you to be someone you're not qualified to be. I'm not. I promise. Whatever it kicks up, we want it to kick that up, because until you get through this, until you bust through this, you will not be able to make the difference you were born to make. So let's get started with some tough stuff. Your book topic cannot be winning at life. Your book topic cannot be self-love for women in transition. Can someone write these books, Winning at Life or Self-Love for Women in Transition? Yes, Jay-Z and Beyonce. Can you? No. In order to write a book on a very generic topic like self-love, self-care, getting your mojo back, winning at life, true happiness, ultimate pleasure, you need to have a huge platform, millions of people. Barack Obama, Beyonce, not you. That doesn't mean you can never write it, but that is not how we're going to take you from where you are to making the difference you want to make. Okay? In order to do that, you have to write a book on a topic that people will spend money to solve. So in the supplemental materials, you are going to find a document called A Few Problems People Are Known to Spend Money to Solve. These are great book topics. When I say them, you may notice a little bile in the back of your throat. You may notice you want to throw up and not write these books. Remember, don't confuse selling and installing. The book topic doesn't say the how. It doesn't say what's inside. What's inside isn't gonna change. But here are a few problems that people are known to spend money to solve, even if the message isn't coming from Barack Obama or Beyonce. Divorce, weight, career change, getting a promotion, starting a business, finding and retaining employees, overcoming a breakup, overcoming an illness, preparing for retirement, getting rid of clutter, adjusting to a move, leaving a church, finding love, winning a competition, stopping an addiction, their kids being successful, making money, getting publicity, growing a platform, getting clients, learning a new skill like playing an instrument or yoga or language, travel, protecting their rights, buying and selling property, getting a certification they can use in their current job or a new one, day trading, immigration, style, saving on taxes. Now, these aren't all the problems that a relatively unknown author can write on, but it's gonna sound like something like this. And what you notice is almost all these topics are a word or two. They are the categories on the back of the book. So if we look at Sharon and Majid's books again, we've got Winning at Life, generic book, nobody buys it. And then we have The Small Business Trap. What problem does this match with? It is probably either starting a business or growing a business. Why most entrepreneurs can't grow their business. There it is, growing a business. That's an actual problem people pay money to solve. Here's Sharon's example, a journey through truth, the authentic life. Still no idea. I'm confused. Beyonce, I want to know about her life lessons, love, lies, life, the things. Why can't I get over him? Breakup recovery, overcoming a breakup. That's an actual problem. Okay? Your book topic has to be an actual, real, live problem. It's probably 1 to 3 words. What's your book about? Overcoming a breakup. What's your book about? Living overseas. What's your book about? Making money. We have to be able to answer it. We can't say, what's your book about? Journeying through truth to find an authentic life, right? Doesn't matter. We could get Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad to sit down, start a book club, read Sharon's book, agree this is the best book ever written. No one's picking it up. It can't make a difference. Actually, it's a great book. And since her other books have come out, she's actually sold a bunch of copies of this after she grew her platform, after she had $1 million business, okay? But for you, we don't want to start with something that is not a specific problem. I'm going to show you how crazy specific it can be with my favorite book ever. You may or may not have heard it. You can find this book for free all over the internet. If you just Google Letters to a Young Poet, you'll find a free PDF copy. But also go to a bookstore because you can sleep with it and snuggle with it and nuzzle onto it. It's my favorite. So I'm going to cough and take a sip of tea, and we're going to get into why this book is the guide to your ideal reader. Okay. Rainer Maria Rilke was a very interesting dude. He came from a military family in Austria in the 1800s. Everybody in his family became a military officer, and he went to the top military school in Austria. When he was there, he graduated and decided he wanted to be a poet. This did not go over well with the fam. They literally thought he lost his fucking mind. A few years later, I think it was 8 years later, there was a guy named Franz Kafis. Franz Kafis, much like Rilke, also went to the same military school, also came from a military family. He was basically a younger version of Rilke. Well, he's getting closer and closer to graduation, and he confides in one of his very close friends. You're going to think I'm fucking nuts, but I don't think I'm going to take this officer appointment. I think I want to be a poet. You want to be a poet? He said, that dude Rilke? Franz Kafis was like, who's Rilke? He's like, you don't know? You don't know Rainer Maria Rilke? He went here 10 years ago? Well, Franz Kafis didn't know who he was, but he looked him up. There were no Googles. He looked him up through his family connections, and he found out there was another guy just like him who had this exact same problem. Should I stay in the military and piss off my family, or should I be a poet? Crazy idea. But he now knew someone who had been there before. And so, on the eve of his graduation, in the autumn of 1902, Franz Kafis writes Rilke a letter, and he says to Rilke, hey, heard about you. We've got some mutual friends. I need your advice. Attached, please find some of my poems. Do you think I should be a poet, or should I just stick with this military career? Now, he expected to get a letter back that said, yeah, looks good, dude. Be a poet. Let me introduce you to my agent. It did not go that way. Why? Because Rilke knew not to confuse selling and installing. The question Cephas had was, should I be a poet? In fact, it's one of the questions on the things people spend money to solve. Is this the right career for me? Should I start a new career? It's actually number 3 on this list, career change. Okay, Rilke didn't know he was about to write the world's best career change book ever. But basically, Cephas says to him, career change? Now, what he's expecting as an answer is kind of a clear yes or no. But the real answer, just like the answer to the problem that your book is going to solve, the topic your book will be on, the answer was much more complicated. In fact, what Rilke said is one of my many favorite quotes. This whole book is all my favorite quotes. Things are not all so comprehensible and expressible as one would most likely have us believe. Most events are inexpressible, taking place in a realm which no word has ever entered, and more inexpressible than all else are works of art, mysterious existences, the life of which, while ours passes away, endures. Now, Cephas is like, should I switch my career or not? What does that mean? And what Rilke answers him is, you must live the questions. Whether you become a poet or a military officer is less important than the life you create, creating your own life design. This is a life coaching book. He's teaching self-love for women in transition. Except what it looks like is career change for Austrian military dudes. There is one sender, Rilke, someone who's been there before, somebody who knows the depth and the pain of this problem that means abandoning your friends and family and identity. And there is one recipient, Franz Cephas, just a dude who's trying to make a really hard decision at a critical, urgent time. He's got till graduation. What do? I need help from someone who has been there before. Now, Rilke didn't know he was publishing one of the best books in the entire Western canon of literature. He was literally writing a love letter to one guy. And that is how I want you to think about your book on this journey. Who is your Franz Cephas? The problem you're solving, who's the one person you could solve it for, that you could write your book with the ease and the grace and the flow that Rilke wrote his? He didn't even know it was a book. It's about as long as yours will be. This book is about 25,000 words. Don't worry about word count, but this is probably how long your book will be. He wrote it in about the same amount of time you'll write your book, 24 to 48 hours of letter writing. There was no stress. There was just ease and joy and flow and the opportunity to share with somebody exactly what he wished he knew when he was in the pain that Cephas was in. So one of the things we're going to discover in the worksheets is, who is your Franz Cephas, or what we call around here, your ideal reader? Not just any reader. There's going to be lots of readers. But who is the one? Who is the one that would beg you to write this book for them? Who is the one who at the end of the book, if they could pay you any amount of money, they could saw off their toes to get you to help them solve this problem, they would do anything to work with you. That is your ideal reader. Now, lots and lots and lots of people have read this book. Do I look like a military dude from 1902 who's deciding whether or not to be a poet? No. You don't have to be a poet. You don't have to be in the 18th century or in 1905. You don't have to be Austrian. You don't have to be anything. I'm going to just read you a random paragraph. Rilke says, see if this relates to you. I'm going to guess that you are not in a time machine in the 1900s at a military college deciding whether or not to be a poet. See if this random passage makes sense to you. And you should not let yourself be confused by the fact there is something in you that wants to break out of where you are right now. This very wish will help you if you use it quietly and deliberately. And like a tool, spread out your solitude over the world. People have oriented all their solutions towards the easy and towards the easiest side of easy. But it's clear that we must hold on to what is difficult. Everything alive holds to it. Everything in nature grows and defends itself in its own way and is characteristically and spontaneously itself, seeks at all costs to be so and against all opposition. Yeah, does it make any sense to you that shit's going to be hard and you're going to be confused by your desires and question yourself? You don't have to be a military dude in 1902 to get that. So your book will resonate with thousands of readers, maybe millions of readers if you're like Rilke. But we need to know the one ideal reader that you are going to write this for. And there's a sender and a recipient, right? So it's Rilke and Cephas. So we need to know who you are in this equation. So let me tell you a little bit about you. Rilke was a poet. He wasn't a life coach. He was a life coach. He didn't have a life coach certification. But he was not selling his coaching or poetry consulting or his workshops, his writer's workshops. He wasn't selling any of that. He was writing poems. In your case, we are writing a client conversion book. You're going to use your book to get clients. So if you can imagine that Rilke also had a poetry consulting business, you can see how Cephas would have quite easily paid him $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for some poetry consulting. So your ideal reader is the person who will buy whatever you sell beyond the book, and whatever you sell right now or whatever we craft together. We're going to talk more in the Design Your Book unit about designing your program. Whatever you're selling, your ideal reader would buy that, no questions asked. So your ideal reader, to recap, is one single human being. People ask me all the time, can it be me younger? Sure, it was in the case of Franz Cephas. But don't give this person your name. It wasn't Rilke in 1902 writing to Rilke in 1892 or 1894. It was Rilke writing to Cephas. So if it is somebody who shares things in common with you, great, but let's give them a new name. We want you writing to Francine. We don't want you writing to you. It gets too confusing. So it can be a version of you. It also has to be someone who would not only read your book, but someone who would pay you $1,000 or more to help them solve this problem. So for your book topic, we need an actual problem that people actually pay money to solve, and like career change. And then we need a recipient of this love letter you're going to write who would pay you. Would Cephas have paid $1,000 to Rilke to be his poetry consultant? Yes. So your reader must be someone who is investing in solving this problem. A lot of people will say to me, oh, my reader is a younger version of me. And I say, what did you buy at that time? And they say nothing, or they don't say a poetry consultant. They say, oh, I bought a house. That is not your ideal reader. That's a reader. Doesn't mean we won't convert them, but your ideal reader is someone who would buy what you're selling, okay? Now you may be saying here, I don't know what I'm selling, but what you are selling is a solution to this problem, okay? We're going to design it later. We're not there yet. What you are selling is the solution to an actual problem people would pay you to help them solve. Don't freak out, it's there, I promise. So, what I recommend as your next step for crafting your ideal reader is to go into the worksheet and get specific on who this person is. Really simple stuff to start with. What's their name? Their name is not women 35 to 40. Their name is Francine, who's 37. Okay? So that's mine. That's not yours. So you need a name, you need an age, you need a location. They don't live in the city, they live in Chicago. And I really want to know, like, what street in Chicago? Where do they live? What does their house look like? What's their job? Are they a business owner? What's the name of that business? So if we just do Rilke's, his ideal reader was Franz Kafis. Franz Kafis was about 22. His location was that city in Austria where that military college was. His job at the time was military officer student. And his family was, he was single, not married, had a very religious family, and had a very military-oriented family. So let's just start with part 1 on the worksheet, which is the demographics of your ideal reader, okay? We want to start talking about your ideal reader as a person. When you're writing to your developmental editor, don't say they, like they think this or they think that. Say she or say Francine or Franz if it's a guy. So be very specific about talking about your ideal reader as an actual person. I want you to get a picture of them. It could be a real person or stock photography or Google image search. But I want you every time to think about it as a person. Don't depersonalize this. Extra personalize it. When I talk about Franz Kafis, I've talked about him so much. Like, I feel like I would recognize him on the street and give him the biggest hug. Like, I think about him as an actual person struggling with this huge dilemma. I mean, becoming a poet? What was everyone going to think about him? His girlfriend was going to break up with him. His which might have been okay because I think he was actually gay, but he hadn't really admitted that yet. There's a lot going on. He's got like issues with athlete's foot. Like, I don't know. It's like a whole human. It's not just some disembodied concept of reader, but it's someone you care about and love. I actually have my little rose quartz heart. And when I'm feeling separate from my ideal reader, I'll just like press it right against my heart, or my right heart's really here, but I just put it right here. And I just think about like, what would it really mean to show up right now for a real person instead of this abstract concept? So I want you to make this really, really, really real. We're going to come back to it a lot and a lot and a lot. Now, the next part of your ideal reader home. Oh, and by the way, as you're doing your demographics, what I recommend is that you actually write a profile of this person. And this is based on work I've done in theater, which is like a character study. If we were going to cast you in the film about your ideal reader's life, what information would you need to know to play that character? I want you to actually write an essay of everything about them. And you'll see in the supplemental materials a few examples of essays that other authors have written. And you'll see how you can really like get in there and humanize that person. What music are they listening to? Who are they talking to? How are they describing this problem? So go ahead when you identify that person and get really clear on who they are by writing a just like a personal essay. I recommend doing it in first person so you actually get into character as this person and write about their worries and their fears and their excitement and what they want and who they are and where they are. And you'll see those examples as well. Now, what you'll notice when you write that profile is they have a way they describe the problem, which is very different than what you might be thinking the problem is. So again, going back to our examples here, Sharon thought the problem, in her words, was, or her wish for the reader was, a journey through truth to find an authentic life. But what was the problem in her ideal reader's words? Why can't I get over him? Now, where did that phrase, why can't I get over him, come from? It came from her ideal reader profile. That's what her ideal reader was asking. And when Majid was writing up his problem, it felt like it was winning at life. But that wasn't a problem. That was his wish for the reader. The way that his ideal reader described the problem was, how come I'm working too hard, earning too much, and I just can't grow my business? So your title information is going to come from this profile. So you really want to get into their head and write this profile in first person. Now, once you have your profile, you want to circle or pull out or share on the worksheet the problem in their words, what they're worried about, how they describe their worries, what's keeping them up at night. These are all things to include in that profile. What is it costing them not to solve this? And what's going to happen if they don't solve this? And not just what's going to happen, but what do they think is going to happen if they don't solve this? This should all be in that profile you write. And again, this will be in the worksheets and the supplemental material. But what's the problem in their words? What are they worried about? What's keeping them up at night? What is it costing them not to solve this? And what do they think is going to happen to them? Okay. And then I also want you to put in that essay, like, what are they Googling in order to solve this problem? Because that's what we all do now. We go to Google. What would Franz Kafis be Googling? Should I be a poet? Secrets of successful poets? Poetry competitions? Like, what was Franz Kafis Googling? And what is your ideal reader searching for on Google? I am going to give you a little checklist now. And as you are looking at your ideal reader, this is like a little bit of a back and forth process. But when you're looking at your ideal reader, you want to make sure, number one, the problem you pick is a problem that you can actually solve. That means you've either solved it for yourself or you solved it for 3 or more other people. It has to be a real problem people pay to solve and a problem someone would pay you to help solve. Even if they've never paid you before, nobody had paid Rilke to be a poetry consultant, but you could see how Kafis would have paid them. So the next thing you want to ask yourself is, do you know where these ideal readers are? Is this a reachable market? So unhappy women, very, very difficult to find. But graduates of military colleges, very, very easy to find. So if you personally had to go find 10 people with this problem, could you find 10 people with this problem? The next thing is this a problem that people would invest, your ideal reader would invest $1,000 or more to solve? It has to be a problem they would solve. You have to know where to find these people. And you have to make sure that your ideal reader would pay you. Now, a lot of people freak out at this point because they're like, oh my God, I'm not, I haven't helped 1,000 people with this. But your ideal reader, by definition, wants you for some other reason. So you can see with Rilke, the reason Franz Kafis wants him is they went to the same school. Their families are very similar. They have a very similar background. He made a decision, probably the way Kafis wants to go. Kafis probably really wants to be a poet, and he wants permission from Rilke. If there was a more, if Emily Bronte were available to coach Kafis doesn't want Emily Bronte's poetry coaching. He wants Rilke's. Rilke is perfect for Kafis. So your ideal reader has to want you specifically. Um, and it has to be one thing, no compound problems here. So it's not like leave my husband and start a business. If there's one book, leave my husband, there's one book, start a business. But sometimes you guys make this a little more complicated. A book is on one problem. The other thing I want you to include in this profile, once you get really clear on what's the problem in their words, is what's the dream come true in their words. Usually you have this too big. So I use an example from my life here, which is when I was 100 pounds overweight, my dream was not to be, my dream wasn't to be skinny. It wasn't to walk the red carpet. It wasn't to wear a bikini in Brazil that, I don't know, went up my ass or something. Like, I just wanted to fit in normal chairs, be able to go to the theater again, not ask for a seatbelt extender from the stewardess, or what do we call them? Flight attendant. I don't know what happened there. That was, okay, old me, some sort of thing there. So your ideal reader's dream come true is probably smaller than you think. A lot of times I see these come back and they look like perfect bliss and harmony and peace in all areas of my life. Yeah. That's not what your book is about. The dream come true for your book is much more manageable. So let's say you were doing panic attacks. The problem they would pay to solve is I want to stop having panic attacks. The problem sounds very normal. It's a one sentence with no commas. I need to stop these panic attacks or I'm going to get into a car accident. That's it. Super simple. And the dream come true is something, it's not like perfect bliss, harmony, and happiness in all of my relationships at work and in my personal life. It's like, I need to either stop these panic attacks or know what to do when they happen so I'm safe. That's their dream come true, is stop the panic attacks. So don't make it bigger, but in the next section of the worksheet, it's going to ask you, what is the dream come true in the ideal reader's words? So at this point, what you're going to have is an actual ideal reader, a single human being with a name and age, an address that they live at, all those things. You're going to have a profile of that ideal reader in their words. So it's in first person, you're writing as them. And if you need some guidance on this, find the Rilke book, because you can see Franz Kafis writing as Franz Kafis. These are letters back and forth between the two of them. So I want you to write in first person, what's the problem? What's the dream come true? What are they worried about? What are they Googling? What is your ideal reader doing here in the place of stuckness, in the place of problemness? What do they think the problem is? Again, the problem, they probably have a little wrong. If they had the problem right, they would already have the solution. So my biggest problem with weight loss is I was not an emotional adult. If I knew I was an emotional child, I would have been Googling, what do you do if you're an emotional child? I wasn't Googling that. I was Googling, how do I lose 100 pounds, right? So your ideal reader thinks the problem is one thing. They've probably got it a little wrong. And the solution, the installing, is something else like mindfulness, meditation, self-love, connection, listening. If they knew that was the problem, they would be Googling that. But they're not. They're Googling something different, and that's why they're not solving the problem. So you're going to have that worksheet that has the problem, and you're going to have that dream come true. So we've got a couple of key components here. We have your ideal reader problem in one sentence with no commas in regular English. That's an actual problem people pay to solve. I need to lose 100 pounds so I can fit in seats at work. I need to stop these panic attacks so I don't get into a car accident. I need to stop arguing with my kid so that I enjoy being a parent again. But it's one actual problem in their words and one dream come true in their words. So we call these the IRP and the DCT, the ideal reader problem and the dream come true. Now, you're going to submit to your developmental editor that full profile and the full worksheet. Again, we're not expecting to get this right, because why would we be here if we were always going to get all these assignments 100% right? We don't need to be here. You're going to submit them to your developmental editor after you complete a checklist that confirms your ideal reader is somebody you can find, it's somebody who would specifically pay you, and it's somebody you can actually help. This is a problem you've solved for yourself or 3 other people, and you can actually help them solve this problem. So you'll see there's a little checklist there. Before you submit, do the checklist. Okay, your developmental editor is going to have more good mojo to give you if you go through that checklist first and ask specific questions on where you're stuck. Most people turn in something that is too vague. So when you're doing the checklist, if you can't check everything off, in the supplemental materials, you'll see something called "Your Ideal Reader Problem is Too Vague." So I want to give you what is not going to be approved. We can just handle that right here. I'm stressed out all the time. I have no motivation. I have unhealthy habits. I need more confidence. I want to be happier. Something's missing in my life. I feel like giving up. I need to get unstuck. I'm depressed. I'm burning out. I need more energy. What if my life and everything I know about it is wrong? These are all too vague. They do not meet the checklist criteria. Do not submit something like this. Yes, I know you're going to struggle with this, but if you are struggling, ask questions. Don't submit some ideal reader that you spend all this time writing up that is too vague. It has to be very specific. When you look at the My Ideal Reader is Too Vague supplemental material, you'll see there's a ton of examples. I think there's, 20 of them or something. So an example is, yeah, exactly. Here it is. Here are 20 examples of what actual ideal reader problems sound like from actual readers when they trigger an investment. So you will read, when you read these IRPs, here's a generic one. What if my life and everything I know about it is wrong? That's just like winning at life. It's too vague. And here's a more specific version. So here's the ideal reader's words, and this would be what would be in your profile. I'm on the cusp of losing everything. I stopped drinking, I started feeling, and now I'm terrified. I don't know how to accept myself, and I want to stop drinking again. So that ideal reader problem, or IRP, is I need to stop drinking before I kill myself with alcohol. That's how specific it needs to be. Yes, lots of people with other problems will read this too, but I really need you to get specific. Your ideal reader has a specific problem. It's as specific as, should I be a military officer or should I be a poet? Here's another one. I know I'm never going to work for anyone again, but I need to support myself and my family while maintaining my self-respect. I need to get out of this career I planned without putting my whole future at risk. I need to create a new life now that my marriage has collapsed. So you have to get specific. I am also going to put into the supplemental materials from my book, Make 'em Beg to Be Your Client. I think one of the best chapters that I have ever written, if I do say so myself, and that is chapter 2, Your We Portal. This tells my whole story of how I identified my ideal reader and the actual problem I solved, because for my first few years in business, I was too vague. So if you're too vague, before you submit your ideal reader homework, if you can't get that checklist right, read chapter 2, Your We Portal, and try and get a little more clarity around the problem that you solve. And Yeah, we talked about the examples. Let me just look at my notes. The last thing, and this is the final thing in this class, and I know it's a long class, I will quickly recap it, is at the end of your book, you're selling something. You may already have what you're selling. It's great. I love it. No changes to anything as long as it solves this problem. It could solve other problems too, but as long as what you're selling solves the problem your book will solve, don't make any changes to it right now. If, however, your book is solving a problem that you don't currently have a way to solve, the way you're going to do that, we're going to craft in the design your book section, is you're basically going to do your book with the client. That's what I'm doing here with my book. If you got my book, you could read it and do it on your own, or we could do it together. So I know that's scary. I know it's vague. That's why we're unlocking this content as we go. So don't get overwhelmed. If your product or program or service or whatever you offer already solves the problem, great, awesome. If you don't have a product, service, consulting, something that solves this problem, you will by the end of the book, and it's called Doing Your Book with Someone. Okay? So don't get overwhelmed by that, but I do need one last piece to identifying your book topic, and that is the result that people will have from working with you. Don't make this more complicated than it is. It is probably their dream come true. The result and the dream come true are often very similar. So just to give you my ideal reader problem, by the way, you should be my ideal reader. So my ideal reader says, I need to write a book that makes a difference. I need to make a bigger difference with a book. Their dream come true is my book is done and it's making a difference in the world. And the result of my program is a finished book and a book marketing plan to get their book into people's hands. Okay? So these are the critical 3 pieces of information that you are going to work with your developmental editor to lock down. This is your book topic. It's the ideal reader's problem in their words, the dream come true in their words, and the result that they will have from putting your book into action. Either putting it into action on their own, DIY, or putting it into action with you. IRP, DCT, and the result. Those are the 3 things that your developmental editor is going to need to approve. So you're going to submit into Basecamp your ideal reader profile. That's going to give your team a whole bunch of background. You're going to submit that worksheet, the book topic worksheet, that's going to have a lot of specifics about your ideal reader. And on that worksheet, it's going to ask us the 3 most important questions: IRP, DCT, and result. We need each of those to be 1 sentence, no commas. If you met somebody in an elevator and they said, what's your book about? You could say career change. It's got to be super simple. And the last thing that you are going to find here in the supplemental material is the checklist. The purpose of the checklist is before you submit your profile and your book topic, your ideal reader profile and your book topic worksheet, you're going to go through that checklist. If you can't check everything on the checklist, you're going to do some extra work here, reading about your ideal reader problem being too vague, reading about your WE portal, asking specific questions to your developmental editor about getting clarity. How do I identify my IRP and my DCT? You want to do as much work as you can on your own, and then you want to ask for support. Don't submit something you know is wrong. If you can't check all the boxes on the checklist, you are in question asking time. Ask the questions, all the places, okay? Get it done. This is not always a fast step. Sometimes people spend 80% of the program just on this one step. But if we've got the wrong book topic, what do we have? and get a book that's not making a difference. So I want you to get this really right, no matter how long it takes. Do not panic. Do not think you're running out of time. Do not think you're doing it wrong. This is critical. Now, if you want to move quickly, then let's invest more time and get it done faster. Most people overthink and overcomplicate this step. So let's jump in there and get it done. Once your IRP, your DCT, and your results are approved, you will be able to move on to the next steps in designing your book. But every single class in here is not equally important. This is hands down, by far, the hardest and most important class in the program. So we're not going to rush you through it. Okay? Go ahead and submit into Basecamp your ideal reader profile, your book topic homework. You don't need to submit your checklist, but make sure it's gone through the checklist. Do additional reading and ask questions until you can submit those well. Don't hide. Do not hide. This is not the point to be like, I'm a fuck up. I shouldn't have been accepted. I'm terrible. No, this is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to ask questions. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. Okay? You've got this. It's a different way of thinking about it, but you've learned hard things before. Be willing to suck. Be willing to be seen. This is what's going to help you become the person who wrote a book that makes a difference. If you're ready to build your business with a book, take my free class at pageuppodcast.com.